So we shall start, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So good morning, everyone. So on behalf of the Young Neurology Forum of Indian Academy of Neurology, myself, Dr. Saraswati Nashi and Dr. Jyotsna AS, welcome you all to this today's session. This session is more on residency. We all know residency has been a transformative phase of our lives. We will discuss more during this session by three different panelists who are here and our senior moderators who have joined us today, Professor Dheeraj sir and Dr. Rishikesh sir. So over to Ella Varasi, who is Associate Professor of Neurology at NIMHANS, and this is her brainchild. So I want Ella Varasi to take over now. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the Young Neurology Forum, Dr. Saraswati and Dr. Jyotsna, for hosting this session. As young neurologists, our daily focus is naturally fixed on mapping the intricacies of the human brain, diagnosing complex pathways, and mastering clinical practice. But the journey of true clinician extends far beyond the textbook or the walls of the clinics. In today's session, Life, Learning, and Beyond, we plan to step back from the bedside. We are here to talk about the unwritten curriculum of medicine, how we wade through residency, how we sustain our curiosity and adapt to lifelong learning in this rapidly changing world of artificial intelligence. And apart from residency, how do we build meaningful lives outside of our scrubs? So let us explore the lessons that we learn from our patients and from life itself, and how we as physicians become the people that we are. So today we have, these are my disclosures. So today we have two very interesting moderators. So the energetic and enthusiastic Professor Dheeraj Khurana, who is the professor in charge of stroke and the multiple sclerosis program at PGI Chandigarh, and he has a lot of accolades and achievements to his honor. To be very succinct, he is the International Stroke Conference Rehab Award winner and Quality and Innovation Award winners from the American Academy of Neurology. He has mentored more than 25 residents and PhD students, and he has initiated a publication rotation for trainees at his institute. And he, of course, is a very futuristic person, and he feels that learning has to be made interesting and traditional teaching has to be fused with the current wave of technology. And we have the other moderator, Professor Rishikesh, who is the evergreen person of our movement disorders neurology from the Indian Academy of Neurology. And he is affiliated to the Institute of Neurosciences, Calcutta, where he is the vice chairman and the director of research. And he has a lot of achievements as well. He has mentored more than 50 mentees in the DNP program as well as the PhD program. And he feels that the residents and trainees have to be holistic personality development, and he wants to amalgamate research skills with clinical curriculum. So over to you, Dr. Dheeraj.
Hi, morning everyone, and thank you, Ella. Well, we've had this young neurology forum, and we've been labeled as the senior moderators by Ella because that kind of should not weigh heavy on the audience and the young neurologists, because we've all been learning over these years, and like Ella said, the learning has never to stop, and you keep learning from your patients. And I think more than that, I think the learning is for the senior guys, is from the residents too. We've been learning from our residents, uh, well, some bit of neurology, but a lot about how things have changed. That's from your own lived experiences, and that's what the forum is all about today. The panelists are going to be relating their lived experiences, like we have real world experience, RWE. It's not a clinical trial happening here. So real world experience of residents will tell us the insights of the current scenario. However, as I would see it, we're not here to brag about how training was so intensive or different in times, say 2 decades ago. That's around where me and my colleague here, Rishikesh, were trained. We currently understand, we do understand the trends have changed, because even when I was getting trained, the people our seniors had a different trend. So the trends have to change. However, the new wave of technology which has taken over in this century, current century, is huge, big, and that has modified our way of learning. So I think this is exactly what we need to adapt to. In fact, it's an adaptation by the current generation of teachers, which needs to be taking place, and we need to find a right mix and the right path where both the things can be uh, kind of adjusted and balanced. So we'll have a thorough, I think, enjoyable discussion today rather than a didactic. And with this, over to my colleague and co-chair, co-moderator, Rishikesh.
Thank you, Dr. Dheeraj. And once again, thank you to IAN for doing this. This is one of the most interesting, most honest program I'm looking forward to. And I must tell you that myself, Dheeraj, and everybody of this age, and maybe senior than us, we have one resident sitting inside us. So everybody is a resident at heart. And I must tell you that these 3 years of residency will shape your life both in academic way and non-academic way. So enjoy your time, and let's hear from the colleagues today. Back to Ila to introduce. Should we introduce Dr. Dheeraj? Yeah. Okay, the first talk will be by Dr. Mohammad Wasik. He is Senior Resident in Department of Neurology, AIMS, New Delhi. He has secured fifth place in oral paper presentation in ICTRIMS 2026. Dr. Wasik will present a lot of problems and issues what new residents face, and we'll listen to him and we'll talk about each of them one by one. Dr. Wasik, all yours.
Good morning, respected faculties. I'm very happy to be part of this panel. Thank you, Ila ma'am, for allowing me to be expressing my viewpoints and also guiding me through this. I would like to share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is, Wasik.
So to begin with, I have come up with few points and issues that after talking with my colleagues and my juniors through the residence and also what I felt. Right, currently I have finished my DM exam and I'm few days left to finish my tenure. So I can tell you with my experience as growing through the first semester to finishing my course, as well as talking to my colleagues and my juniors through the course. I'm not sure if these points are already well known, or I'm bringing out new points. We'll find out later. I try to keep the questions very generic, not any institute based or not any course based, both for DM and DNB. And also, the goal of the presentation is to get a viewpoint from a senior faculties, particularly what their viewpoint is from their time, what they felt during their residency, and what the current residents feel. Are they well informed? Do they know the niche the problems that we face, or and how to handle them? I want to take their advice, and also it will be guiding for us. So I've divided them into two parts. As a new joinee resident coming to a new city, I feel the first problem is adjusting to the new city, and the second problem is adjusting to the department. So the starting with the first point, adjusting with the new city is to find an accommodation. What I felt was during the first few days of my residency, I was actually staying in a hotel and I had difficulty finding a home. I basically are from Bangalore, and after moving to Delhi, I didn't know anyone, and that was a very stressful phase where I was staying in a hotel and I had no accommodation. I had to find as early as possible before the reporting date, and there was no one to guide me, and so I was clueless. But later, as I grew through the residency, I found there is a well-built, inbuilt, on-site system of residents. There are WhatsApp groups of the residents where the seniors actually put posts of someone who's vacating or someone who's leaving, and also the resident groups will have information of the local brokers, a website that can help us find accommodation. So, as a new joinee resident who's just starting the course, I would first ask them before you report to the department, get in touch with one of the senior resident who is there already in the department. Ask them how did they find the way, because it's the same process. It's followed unsaid and the same process is followed through the generation. So it's easier than to you to find the way again in the new city to find a new home. So as you can, and also most of the institute have a delay in hostel accommodation. So till then you can stay outside, and once you get a hostel, try to bring all the essentials, settle in as earliest, and one important is do all this work before you join the workplace itself, before the reporting date, so that you start with a peace of mind. You don't have to go back, take leave in the early days where you are still settling in to adjust to the work, to find a home. So
Yeah, so this point, Dr. Dheeraj, Ila share that odd point I can take. Can you take this point,
Sure.
or you are going to
Yes,
take?
yes. Rishi, sir.
All right. So you told everything what is needed. First thing is to reach the place well before the starting day. So once you start and then you go in half day to see the place, that's stick no. So I suggest to go say 6 7 days earlier than when you started to report reporting time, and look for the accommodation. In that case, the best person is the person inside. Means you have to contact the resident inside, senior people inside, and sometimes even professors who are there, because they have more contact. Sometimes they have personal contact, they can help you. So good to go there, move around. The principle is that the place should not be too far from your working place, because it's possible that in night time you have to go late night, so it should be close. And I feel that at this point in time, I would say that it should not be too lavish, because you're not going to stay in any case. You're going to just sleep and come back to work. So it's a small place, but not too far. Safe, that's more important. But most important is to finalize that well before you start your first day.
Just to add on,
Yeah, yeah. Sure, that's perfect.
he was talking, he was telling on the on his on the presentation that he met his residents, met his fellow residents and his seniors. I think that's the first thing that you need to do, as
Yeah.
Rishikesh pointed out. And the more recent thing, which I think it's nothing recent, technology. So you have applications as well as a Facebook page dedicated to, shared accommodations, which is safe, what I hear, because that's what I found out. My own daughter, she used that to take accommodation in Bangalore or someplace. I wasn't aware of that. So I think technology, that's the answer here. And you could probably go on to that. Residents could go on to these kind of pages where you get safe and there's no intermediary. You just directly, uh, you know, get in touch with all your fellows. I
Yeah,
think.
so learning point I would say for all the institute is to have some portal where residents have the previous resident are there, or who can help the new resident with the accommodation, which is the in Western world. When I went to Canada for a fellowship, I knew that which houses are safe, which houses are too far. So that should be there, and that is one thing we can do by using technology for each institute or each place.
True.
okay, sir. So the next point that I felt was again difficult for me and will be difficult for most of the new residents are developing new food habits and maintaining a healthy habits. As we already have finished a master degree in DNB or MD, and we have survived the 3 years of difficult residency, but still we'll have again difficulty through our DM or DRNB. So what I felt was we are developing a palette for the mess food, and again you can take help of house helps or sometimes have tiffin services. What my advice to the new joinees will be to have an healthy habit. Do not be at least take something in the breakfast, take a coffee before we start our pre-rounds, before the main rounds, and carry protein bars. I still used to carry protein bars. Obviously the residency is difficult, we will not be able to get a proper lunch break in between the rounds. A proper 200 to 300 calories of protein bar is enough to again give you enough fuel to push through the end of the rounds, and after that you can take a proper meal. But obviously eat something, don't burn the yourself both mentally and physically. So that what I've seen most of my juniors also doing is they go full hungry till 4 p.m. and then they eat, and then they have a full glycemic spike, and they are not able to do any work. They work up in the evening, they're tired, they're slouched, and it's a whole burning, mental burn, both physically and mentally, to be hungry for about 8 hours, 9 hours, and then have a meal. So give something to the body and then continue with your work. And your opinion.
Yeah, that's totally quite agreeable. Again, food access, as I would call it, is become a totally different ball game compared to what it was in the past. Say 2 decades ago, there were no applications. I don't say that we depend upon all the delivery services that are available, but that is a good, I think, option available that you can resort to while you're still finding your way around in your institute. Ultimately, you do find your way around the institute on the messes, in the mess or in the cafes in the institute. And AIMS has a wonderful array of mess, number of cafes as well as the eating places for the residents. That's what I thought in the past. But that's just specific. I would. The other part is definitely have a healthy. It's it's mandatory to have a healthy food intake, a light food, so which keeps you active throughout the day, like Vasik just said. And I would also suggest develop some self learning for the meals. One needs to get that, and I think the new millennials, as we call them, do have some passion in learning and making their own food. Keep some food in your room, quick food which you can, and a healthy food apart from the bars, which you can take in the morning and then leave for your work.
Yes, sir. The next issue will be the local language. As resident, when we are choosing the institute, being neurology, taking up neurology, main prima facie is talking with the patients. Our case history is long enough, and again, starting off learning a subject and then again starting off learning a new language is over itself a new thing. So, when I chose the city, I knew Hindi, so it was easy for me to move from a South Indian state to a North Indian state. It was not an issue for me for people who are moving through a different city with a new language. Uh, First, take a call if you're able to adjust with the language because it's difficult to learn a language. But if there's no option, but it's you can learn it. You have colleagues. I have seen my seniors who had no. Ability to read or say a sentence in Hindi, but they made through the residency. They learned by the first 3 months itself. So it's possible. So keeping in this language as a barrier to get into a good institute should not be there. So you can learn language with slight effort.
Yeah, Vasik. Well put. I would say language should never be a barrier to go to a new institute. So, because of language, you should not avoid some institute because language you can learn. That's one. And second, we should look at a positive way that apart from residency, you are at the end of 3 years, you are having a new language, which is wonderful thing for a human being for life. And it's always good if you decided to go to X institute where your language is not the same. It's good to prepare a bit, means few days, suppose you have 1 month to learn a bit of language and to be very clear about that. I need these 15 lines to talk to the patients because talking to patients is very important. Yeah, what are the symptoms, where the pain happens. So these lines, if you can you can learn, that will help to start with. And in that case, always good to give importance to people who are not doctors, like nurses, even the canteen people. You start talking to them in that language, and that works wonderfully. It's impossible to have a proficiency of language in few months time, but if you put effort, as I came to Bengal, I didn't know Bengali. If you put effort, people realize that, and they help you to understand better by taking it very simple, by keeping it very very simple. So language is very important, and I think that's a positive thing, and it's very easy. Means, in 2 3 years, 2 3 months time, you will find that you are reasonably good enough.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you're also making your brain stronger. A polyglot has
Exactly. It's
greater chances
less
of
of
recovery
dementia.
after a stroke from a
Exactly.
aphasia.
So, in fact, in that case, you should choose a residency which is in that state, which is not your language.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So the next thing I would advise is to build a support system. It's your core semesters, it's your roommates, it's your juniors, your seniors. Don't pile up your work stress or your emotional stress. Like particularly with the core sem, you have to vent that stress out. You have to remain uh, sane through the residency. Sometimes there are bad days where you have to vent out to someone, and if you don't find it's difficult, so just remember, make a good rapport. They're also searching for friends. You're also searching for friends. No one is not avoiding each other. So you will find friends through the course and just be open to talking to people. And that's important to have a support system. So
Agree
this is
about
what
that.
I felt during my residency that it's important to, when we have as junior most resident in the department, there'll be tough times and you need to have someone to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's important part of your support. You need to build up a support system, and your batchmates, your fellow mates in the same field, or maybe you. And I'm pretty sure you end up in an institute where you have somebody from your institute. Where if you've come to a new institute, and of course, if you're in the same institute, you'll have friends there, and more important than friends. These days I hear the new generation making a support system through the AI bots. I would tend to avoid that. That's led to mishaps. So do not, do not. I strongly suggest don't make AI your support system. Just ask the relevant part to that. And apart from a support system, I think it's an important part to also take a break. And by that, I don't mean a holiday or a vacation. In a day's routine, take a small time off for yourself for some exercise. I think that really makes a difference. That's I used to do the same thing. Take some time off, and you can find time off either late evening, early morning, within the routine. Half an hour for a short run or a walk. I think that does great wonders, better than even a person you're talking to, because that time you're on your own with your own self, and a lot can be settled with that practice.
I, I must re-emphasize Dr. Dhira's point that sports exercise is very important. Sports exercise, any hobby is very important, and that will sail you through. Half an hour, 20 minutes per day, that will sail you through.
Then staying connected with family, make video calls. Don't hide your stress from the family members. Also, we have sometimes we do become weak. You don't have to show a fake strength to them and be saying that everything is fine. Where I'm doing residency, saying everything is fine, and then one fine day they are informed some bad news or something like that. Keep connected through the residency. Show your weak side also. It's okay if you are crying in front of them, but show them that you are also vulnerable and don't have to have a fake strength to make them proud. They are proud of you have reached the stage that you are already currently are actually a very difficult stage, so don't have to keep a fake strength. Confide with them. And also the second point that I would ask the senior faculties, sometimes I have seen the residents have this peer pressure, or not just peer pressure, the family pressure of getting married during residency and also or starting family. So after speaking with few residents, they feel like during the course of the residency, if they get married or start a family, they feel they're not doing justice to the program that they were planning to do. So they feel that they will not put their 100% effort in reading or doing work. So what's faculty's take on this? Or should they procrastinate or take the emotional turmoil of their partner by
Yeah.
procrastinating that after residency, or of the family members? Can a resident be good resident also be good at doing justice with the family members? Is it possible? I'm not sure. Like we have
Yeah. Yeah, Dr. Vasik, first of all, regarding the first point you raised, that talking to the family, unfortunately, our communication with parents or brothers, sisters remains sab theek hai, sab all well, and we cut it. And your parents are lost, that they feel that they're going away from the child, and you have lost a good support system because parents know you much better than anybody else. So I think that we should talk little more, maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and that will help you. We say that we don't have time, but that's again farce. We have time. If you want 5 minutes, we can have time any day. We can fix that. Walking from your hostel to your hospital, you can talk. So that should be done. Now, coming to this marrying or having child during residency, this is a very individualized thing. I won't say that there should be a rule for that, right? If you feel that things can be delayed for a while till residency finishes, it should be very clear right from the beginning to the parents or to the family members that 3 years, please don't disturb me. I like to finish it off. But I can tell you, once you finish residency, it never stops. After that, somebody will like to go for a postdoc. Somebody like to have some other training. So it never stops. So residency should not be a blockade for marriage. And I have examples that both can coexist. The only thing, the good communication is important before marriage with the partner or with the family. So that's very important. To answer your question, I would say that's the age when one should marry, right? Around that age. So if good proposal is there, if you're good, say, proposed spouse, I would say one should go for that with clear understanding that these 3 years are tough, and I'll spend more time in the ward, and this should be very clear to start with. Dr. Dheeraj, I'd like to have your opinion because this is very individualized thing.
Oh, I just missed the last few lines because my connection broke off.
No, his question was that should we marry? Should the person
Okay,
marry
yeah, yeah.
during residency or
So
not?
that's a
Does it
very
impediment?
interesting question. I would the last few lines that you spoke of, I think it's very individualized and personalized, like personalized medicine. But there's a small joke in PGI which runs around. At least we've been hearing it from our times, and it is quite often true. There's a legend, as I would say. It's a kind of apocryphal, but it's a legend which states that if you don't get married or engaged or connected with somebody during residency, you'll never do that. And we've seen cases like that in PGI who stayed unmarried throughout their life. But jokes apart, I think it stays a personalized thing. We can't just force it on everybody, or we can't force, don't do it. There have been kind of situations which make it difficult uh, after the marriage, but that's all personalized. If you're strong enough, you think you're strong enough, or you're balanced enough to balance both the parts together. And sometimes it's I think more feasible when the partners are in the same institute. We've seen that where it's more preferable, I think. So I would leave it as a very personal and a individualized approach.
Yes, sir. Okay. Then the next point that I would like to bring is, as the first semester joining, like obviously we would have read through the initial, like the peak of the mountain, the peak of the iceberg of neurology while cracking the entrance exam, but we are not well versed with the subject itself. So a 7 day or 10 day orientation program for all the important cases that one would see in the emergency, like Guillain-Barré syndrome, a stroke, like reading CT, uh, getting the resident well versed with that before pushing them down to the wards line to start seeing the patient. Like many of the institutes in India have this, but as a generic, this is the points that I would like to put this in this forum, that as a rule maker of someone at the higher point, I think it's well to do to have an orientation program before the resident starts to get pushed on the line. Maybe a 5 day. However, the programs can make place for it. Need not be a fixed duration. Like it's up to the program to have.
I strongly, vouch for that suggestion, or for not only a suggestion. I think that's a requirement for all programs. And orientation has to be there. You just cannot ideally in an ideal setting. It's not a recommended thing to just flood. It's like throwing you in a swimming pool, or which is one of the ways people learn how to swim. But that's a hard way to learn to swim. It's always good to it works in certain situations, but here I think when somebody has come to face a highly stressful time, it's going to be anticipated that the time that you're going to be there for training, it's a highly stressful time, and you're facing a new system. That's the main thing. The system that you've probably come from, if you're in the same institute and you've gone to the next program, it is way, way, way easier. For that guy might say, I don't need orientation. But majority of the trainees, they come from an outside institute. The culture, the traditions, I would probably equate it to a marriage. Somebody gets married into a family, goes to that family, sees a different kind of a tradition, a culture, and you need time for adjustment to that culture. So one of the things I think is the way to go is have an orientation in terms. Somebody should talk to the resident, a faculty who's a designate academic orientation person who's been either the academic in charge or somebody senior uh, who volunteers for this, should speak to the new residents, tell them about a couple of things, what the program is all about, how does the program run, because see, every institute has its own priorities, and tell them what is expected of the resident. Of course, everybody expects a lot of work, needless to say, but that kind of builds a connection. That's what I've seen. Talking to a new trainee about how the system runs, and talking to them, trying to, it's kind of homing in. A homing in program should be done. The rest part, of course, all the duties, they have to be gradually sinking in into the resident's mind. So I think most of the institutes must be doing it. As a new trainee, they are shadowing a person, and that's at least that's what we do at PGI. For the first 3 months, they usually shadow, and starting from easier to tougher duties, so that you don't really discourage them right on day one, sending them to the ER. They'll be lost. So there's no point in throwing them into the battlefield saying, "Oh, take it." There's nothing brave about that. I don't see it any brave, because you're dealing with real lives. It's not a real battle. So if you're dealing with real lives, I think it's got to be a gradual, slow sinking in that helps you, rather than just flooding yourself with a whole load and being lost in the first few days. That has its casualties too, I think. So that's an important program. I think all institutes should adopt some kind of an orientation. Again, depending on the institute, what do they want to choose?
Yes, sir. So coming with the next set of issues, that adjusting to the workplace and also academic adaptation, I felt the first important point is junior senior interactions and their relationship. Through my 3 years, I felt like it's a yin and yang situation. It has to be balanced on both the side. One cannot dominate the other. But I genuinely want to pose a question in this forum that uh, being graduated from an Indian residency program, there is an unsaid hierarchy in our system, being the junior most senior resident to the senior most senior resident. The junior most senior resident will get a little higher, a more work than the senior most senior residents. What as I felt as a junior when I was a first semester, this is my experience, and also this is the experience that I felt after speaking with my colleagues, that at that point we felt bad when I was getting more work and looking at my seniors relatively going earlier from the wards, and I being staying at 9 o'clock. But when I became a most senior resident, I felt that that was important for me at that stage of time, where the roles are different for me, the responsibilities were different for me. Sometimes the system of tries to balance this equation, and we can get resistance from both the sides. Sometimes balancing towards the junior most junior senior residents can give resistance from the seniors, and vice versa. So what's your advice or take on this? How should the relationship and also work dynamics between the senior most as well as junior most senior resident has to be? Should there be an unsaid hierarchy? Should there be balancing? Should there be overburdening? It's very difficult to tell. I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's different in different institute. But I'll took into two aspects. One is behavior, hierarchy of behavior. Another hierarchy of work. So I won't accept hierarchy of behavior. Means somebody is bossing you. That should not be accepted. If that is happening, they should be pointed out. Maybe politely, and it should be pointed out. But hierarchy of work is needed for learning. Means once you learn work more on the ground during first year, you can imagine that you learn a lot, and thereafter you're closer to exams. You need more time for yourself. In that case, the first year should not be envious of third year that he is or she is getting more time. So this work hierarchy helps in due course of time. And I would say that all the residents that this is the way people learn. So this work distribution till till a level. Means it's not that they should be overburdened, but this pyramidal type of work distribution helps in learning for the first year and helps in preparing for exams for the third year, which I think which is helpful. I also feel that in that case, informal discussion with the senior sometimes helps, and that informal discussion cannot happen on the workplace, because workplace things are very tense. It's good to have interaction outside the workplace, maybe in with the tea, if they drink on a drink or a restaurant, going out. So this small change out of the workplace helps a lot coming back to the workplace. And answer is very difficult for each center. It's different.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's all again driven by the institute. I think cultures are driven by the institute. But yeah, I think you're lucky if you get a senior who's covering your back. It's a kind of a mentorship starting early.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Correct. The second issue that I felt and also found out from my juniors were the duty hours. Again, going back to previous question, the first semester working for longer during hours. Being more having more night duties and burning out. Should there be a system made, or how to tackle this? balance out the working hours. Sometimes we feel that we are getting a lot of activities. Just building up the same question on that. Uh,
1 p.m. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, you see, about the duty hours, it's kind of linked to the question, but the point before this you took up, because duty hours again is, I won't say subjective, because there are institutes, places where you might end up doing interminable hours of working, and which is not conducive for both mental and physical health. But this all depends on the kind of strength available. If you have a good resident strength, one, and sometimes it's good for your learning, and that's what I would see, at least in the beginning years. If you've been doing some extra duty hours, that really helps your, in a way, it's kind of fatiguing, but that's what brings about your brain to learning the tough time. It's like an army training. That's what I actually, in my, sometimes I would orient residents and tell them this is like an army training. In the army, there is no duty hours. But that I wouldn't say that should continue for a few all your entire training. A few weeks to a month or few times when you were exceeding your duty hours will do good, but not excessively doing it day in and day out, which would fatigue you. And currently, I think there are some regulations too. The regulations have come in for duty hours for residents, and they have changed now. Like I see, we never used to get a mandatory off. Now there are mandatory offs which the residents get. So things are changing, like we discussed in the beginning. An evolving uh, resident program is happening, and you do have, I think, residents in the current era, they do get mandatory offs and cooling off periods. But that reminds me of a regulation which started in the US many years back about residents, and they were asked to cut down on their duty hours. And it was by the ACGME, which governs their rules and in the US training. So some of the branches, the neurosurgeons, they said we don't want it because we won't learn if we are just working 8 hours a day. They voluntarily declined it. And that's a fact for surgeons. Neurosurgeons, it was a matter of pride. Hey, I did a duty for 48 hours. There's another guy who comes and says I did it for 72 hours. So that's kind of we used to hear it. Of course, we were not that hard pressed, but the surgeons are. The neurosurgeons, they would actually be on duties for continuously for 2 or 3 days, and that's probably the intensity of the program demands it. But it all and it's dependent upon the program, the labor intensiveness of the program, how intense you are. And currently, I think, since you have divisions, you have so many subdivisions, maybe stroke, maybe movement disorders, and if you're posted in one area which may be more intensive than the other, this some few days of extra duty hours should be taken with a pinch of salt, I think.
The next point that I would like a thought about is interaction faculties and faculty members. What I felt is as a senior resident, like a junior resident, um we lack confidence. Being graduated from the Indian system of residency, we have this inherent fear of defying or having any conversation with the faculty members, and we fail to develop confidence, particularly during the early days. And if at all, if there's a resident who is very not easily acceptive of the uh, discussions or questioning, then sometimes I've not seen, but I've heard like they can be labeled as argumentative, and they can be shunned or targeted. So should there be a blind following of everything like in Indian system that we hear that it's happening, or should we develop an proper interaction during a residency that even the resident can put his or her inputs and not be afraid of being wrong? Sometimes it's the fear that overburdens us to open our mouths in our rounds. So how to bring that fear down and get our confidence up?
Yeah, Vasik, this is a very important point, and unfortunately, this is a fallacy of Indian system, fallacy of our upbringing sometimes. where we are not supposed to open mouth in front of parents or father or anybody senior, and which is impediment for your learning as well as our learning, because as senior we need to hear voices which are not the same. So I think to answer your question, there should be dialogue from both sides. In that case, the job of the senior people of the faculty is to explain to the resident right from the beginning that yes, speaking is okay, right? Which may not happen everywhere, but this is the way we should. As a resident, I would say that you should find one or two person in among the faculty, which we all did, who are more friendly to you. So out of say eight, you may not open the mouth in front of everybody, but two or three you'll find more friendly with you, and start doing more dialogue with them. That will improve your confidence, and that will channel to other people also. So that's one. And second, as a human being, everybody should learn to put the point or disagreement in the best possible way, most polite way. Over here, we falter sometime. That you may be perfectly all right. Your point may be perfectly all right. The way you put that makes a resident as an argumentative or bad apple. So the way we put is very important. Over here comes a soft skill. Over here comes English skill sometimes. So that everybody should learn this soft skill English skill. That argument means any point should be put in so polite way. It's like English way, so polite way that it's not harming or damaging.
I agree totally. This is a continuous learning, and this is an extremely important point that you've taken up. I think one of the ways I would look at it is what we call as a Socratic way of learning. Socratic manner is very interactive, and that's what we all do have our times when we may be adamant, and I see that I clearly stated maybe we also were like this as students and junior faculty, but as we probably look at more years in our lives, it's primarily it's our own ego. It's an ego which you need to shed off, and the ego is the one which brings about the interactions, and that's what my feeling is, and that needs to be a bit. And we need to let go of certain things. That faculty needs to let go of things and listen to the resident in terms. Why you said that the resident doesn't speak, because there's one big impediment or a threshold which comes in. What if I am taken as it's an offense if you contradict? However, in my mind, and I actually encourage residents to speak up if the faculty is wrong. They need to come up, but with the evidence. And now it's these days it's easier, you have all your chat GPTs and all. But apart from that, uh, one should come up with maybe not in a polite manner. That's a better thing to come up with things and facts which the faculty may not actually be citing properly or maybe wrong. And the faculty should actually, I see it as a part of the faculty to encourage, because you're honing the next breed of residents, next breed of neurologists and leaders, and it's on our part, on our duty to make them more confident, and confidence can only be instilled if you make them come up with the facts rather than stumping them and not allowing them to contradict. Contradiction is part of learning. However, contradiction can be two ways, like Rishikesh just mentioned. It may be very offensive to sound with, so one needs to be. I think the best way to carry that out is a Socratic manner, and maybe the soft skills of the language. Those are very important.
Yes, sir. What in my experience was there were a few bad days in the training program. Initially, in particularly in the first semester, in the first 6 months, and those bad days, if you don't recover, it turns into bad fortnights. We have a service rounds around 2 weeks, and the faculty and the residents will have a bad time. That particular resident will keep on making mistakes and mistakes and snowballs into a full bad fortnight. Uh, the resident tries to recover, but already the first two mistakes, there's an impression that this resident is will make mistakes. So how do you recover from there?
It's a tough one. Everyone has bad days and bad fortnights. And like you said, it snowballs. So it's like a domino effect. It starts as a vicious cycle. Somebody who's been let down, somebody who's been probably put down by in the round would tend to be either that person will rebel and create a further mess for himself or herself, or would go back into a shell. So these two things happen very commonly. We see that somebody going into a shell. So it comes on to, I think, a faculty who should keep a balance. Some faculty member who can look into this, see through the things, and see that the things are bad. And the resident should have the courage to go and talk to a mentor or their own. You have mentors, you have like your thesis guides. They should go and talk to them that this is what we feel, or maybe the chief. And there are committees right now in institutes which have been instituted to take care of mental health for residents, and that's an important thing. So one should go and have a word that what is going on in their mind, and that I think helps rather than keeping on to themselves. And I think in most cases this would help. And the other part is, of course, it's all related, not being acting very brave and trying to avoid all those things. One needs to be in touch with their own mental health. And again, sports, I would say, or some kind of an exercise does help. Just take some time off. That will take care of at least some part of this. So a mix of all these things do help you tide through these periods, I think. Or what do you say, Rishikesh?
No, this point and next point we can combine, and I agree with that. So for me, it's very easy to keep on thinking about what you did wrong, and it keeps on snowballing. So we should find something what we did right in that whole 24 hours. Suppose half an hour you did something right, so we should harp on that. And over here, I feel that this sports helps significantly, because that time, suppose you played well something, or you had a good time. This itself reflects throughout the day. So some hobbies, some sports helps in that also, and harping on more of positive rather than negative thing that brings you out of the bad fortnight, which is the second point. Yes, Wasif.
So the next point is resident wellness programs. So what I felt was we as residents should develop extracurricular activities, particularly joining gym or doing sports. And in the little time that we have, we should do that. On the other hand, I have seen my personal experience of fellow colleagues that they have the habits, and they're if and they're afraid to do so, or at all. Like, is there a sense of feeling of bad? That what I have seen is a resident is spent his weekend doing half marathon. He's afraid to showcase there. Normally, a resident was a normal. This is a normal environment where people post some photograph on WhatsApp or something like that. So the president is afraid to tell people that I did that, because what if they say that तुमने क्यों किया ये weekend पे, तुम पढ़ाई क्यों नहीं किया? Why? How did you get a time to do this? From where did you get this time to spend this evening outside? So छुपा के भी रखते हैं, and they don't show their, and they don't spread that happiness with the fellow colleagues कि हाँ, this is my activity. They don't showcase that I do sports, I go to gym, I do a half marathon on the weekend, I do cycling for 1 hour. But the resident is afraid to show that, because the program says that can the program also have in place for that?
Yeah, so this is a thing of mindset, because I feel that whatever you told, it should be shown in positive way rather than negative way. Yes. Once you do something, this should be spread. Suppose you have done some music concert, so you should spread it. So this first resident should not feel guilty. We should. This is part of life, not only residency. We should avoid that feeling of guilt that if I'm doing something, I'm wrong. In fact, it should be other way around. So this is personal mindset one has to develop. I'm keeping short because we are running time. On the other hand, I feel from residents itself, nowadays one institute has sometimes 30, 40, 50 residents. Some small clubs, so sports club, tennis club, badminton club, chess club, and meeting once a month, this will help them going. So both ways, yes, there should be some club sort of activity from institute, from a resident itself, and from our side also, we should avoid that mindset of guilt. Dr. Dheeraj.
I think like we have patient support groups. So that these clubs, as Rishikesh mentioned, are the resident support groups. So, or it would be a good idea to have resident support groups and institutes where they can share their experiences, like you are right now. That really would be something new which can be started. Of That should not boil down to certain protests, but it's a good idea to have something of that sort.
So the last point that I would like to bring forward is this resident feedback system. So what I have heard from the residents who is working outside India, they have the system where anonymously they can point out to changes in the system of the program. We as Indian system lack that. Sometimes I felt like there is something to tell to the system and to bring a change in the system, but again the fear and also being shunned or targeted is what stops that. And that mistake or that change in the system will never happen, and it's generation to generation. If there's so many batches coming and going, that is going through that. So this is in generic, not in any particular institute. Like as a rule maker, somewhere up, down, up the stream, someone has to come up with an idea that should there be an anonymity resident feedback system?
Yeah, agreeable. This runs very well in a lot of international systems. Singapore, for example, that's one of the most robust systems for a 360-degree, feedback system, as they call it, where both student and the teacher, they give each other feedback. Again, it's driven by the system, and like we've probably been, we've evolved, or we've been running our system. It's still not a standard uh, part of our curriculum or a part of our culture to have a feedback system on both the sides. It's still very objective. I would call it very paternal, that it's the objectivity is only from the side of the residents, sorry, faculty towards the residents. And this may, I think, we need to keep on to it. And the I believe that I don't know if this is there in the IITs. From some sources I heard maybe it exists in IITs, but maybe it takes over the health system soon. That would be good, but it has maybe, and it has to be adopted in a very democratic manner, and because this may have its harms in our current system if it's not properly designed. So the adoption should take place, but it has to be in a phased or in a very uh, thought of manner, I would say. Yeah, you're right. It should be there.
Thank you, sir. So this is a few points that I try to bring forth in this panel after interaction with my juniors as well as fellow colleagues and my own experience. I might have not covered all the points. I thought of covering some important issues that I felt through the residency and could help the fellow residents who's joining the course now in this semester or the next semester, or anyone in the future who looks at this video and takes this video as an example to learn from them to guide through their way to the residency. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Vasik. Thank you for so succinctly bringing up all the pertinent points, and you did a very good job. And I would definitely like to thank Dr. Rishi and Dr. Dheeraj for being very good moderators. And I'm sure this video will stand the test of time. And I will definitely ask the juniors who are going to join this July to see this video before they start off. So thank you. We have slightly overshot the time, but I guess every minute of discussion was definitely worth it. So moving on, now this is something that is the next topic is something that most of the people are sort of looking forward to. And let me introduce Dr. Aradhya, who is currently a postdoctoral fellow in epilepsy in NIMANS Bangalore. He is the winner of the TISA Neurology 2026, and he has several peer-reviewed publications during his course of his tenure from NIMANS. And he is working on several newer technological modalities in neurology and epilepsy, and I'm sure he is the right person to give this talk. Over to you, Aradhya.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the kind introduction. So I would like to share my screen. Can I do that?
Go ahead.
Okay, so is it visible?
Yes, please go on.
Okay. Okay, so I'll quickly shift the note from a pessimistic one to an optimistic one. So all the problems were discussed, but nothing is a problem if you have this friend with you who will always have your back and will never betray you. So this I'll throw in a disclaimer at the beginning of the presentation. So this presentation is not meant for the extreme tech savvy people. So it is meant for the early resident, the ones who are still to catch up with the newer AI agents and use of AI routinely in their clinical practice. So for most of us, for even me 6 months back, AI was just ChatGPT. But now, so this diagram will give you a peek into what AI actually is. So this is a set of concentric rectangles, and we see ChatGPT is at the center of that, but it is just a subset. So there is machine learning, deep learning, generative AI, LLMs, and among that, one of them is ChatGPT. So AI is already in the residence toolkit in other centers, international centers. So it's high time that we also catch up. So the primary areas where a resident might need AI are academic writing, data management, exam prep, and diagnostic help. So I'll cover these briefly. So the first thing we need to know is to understand the language of AI. The way to communicate with AI is through a prompt. No AI will understand you unless you create a good prompt. So there's a way to generate prompts, and that's called the craft framework. So in this, the context, role, ask, format, and tone, all of this should be apt for the information that you are looking for. So here's an example. A weak prompt is explain pneumonia. So it's too vague and there's no context or role. So to create a good prompt, you have to write like this: I'm a final year MBBS student preparing for my pediatric examination. And then who wants to, what is the role? What is the role that the AI should assume? Should be clear, should be clarified in the prompt. And also you have to ask the relevant questions, then format it in what format you want it. You have to give that to the AI agent that you're using, and also to set the tone and on the target audience. Then only you'll get the information that you're looking for. So, so I'll start with the AI tool that is most commonly used for making presentations, even this one. So I deliberately used AI to make the framework of this presentation. So, so this is Copilot that I'm using. So there are a lot of prompts that I've given. And then it, even if you are not able to generate a prompt properly, it keeps asking questions, the relevant questions. So which angle should the deck emphasize? That is, what is your target audience like? And so these things, once you select, it'll give you a fairly good, the structure of the presentation will be ready. You might save an hour on this. So next comes research work. So academic writing and research work. In this, there are 5 steps: searching the evidence, then mapping how different papers are connected, where is the lacuna in the evidence, and then managing all that information, and then writing it, and then collaborating with other people who might be working on the same document. So for literature search, again, there are a lot of, most of us use only PubMed, but PubMed now comes with PubMed AI. And also apart from that, semantic scholars, iSpace, smart citations, R discovery, these also might be used. R discovery is very useful for audio abstracts. So then literature mapping, Research Rabbit is a very good tool. I'll provide video evidence of that. And then insightful, lateral, connected papers, all of these are coming up big time. So this is an example paper on migraine advances in treatment. Let's say I've seen a case of migraine in the ward, so I quickly want to go through the latest advances. So now I'll go to, or maybe if I want to write something based on this article, I'll go to Research Rabbit. And then so in Research Rabbit, the only thing you have to do is give the DOI of the article. And then as you give the DOI, the AI agent itself will find out the source article is here somewhere at the bottom, and then from there all the references can be mapped. So you can individually go through all these nodes and see what all references are there and what are the abstracts within each of those references. So once you click, yeah, so it keeps on showing all the abstracts for all the references. Similarly for citations, if you move on, you can see the citations to this article, the articles that have cited the article in question. As you move to the citations option, yeah, so as you click the citations option, you'll be able to see the citations. Yeah, so it's a pretty useful tool for organizing evidence. So then comes reference management. Once you gather all these references, you can use Mendeley, EndNote, Paperpile, Papers, Umata to any of these agents, whatever is comfortable for proper organization. And then writing and finalization. Most residents face difficulty in writing, in beginning the draft of the manuscript. Many feel overwhelmed with the references, where to add, what to cite. So PaperPal is a very good option for that. So PaperPal, basically, there's a chat bot. You just have to answer the questions, and then you have to upload the article. So as you upload the article, the questions keep coming, and then it automatically generates a draft. Obviously, that is not AI proof, but the good thing is you can paraphrase that. So that will reduce the AI percentage to a certain extent. But then, of course, you have to go through it and verify, cross-verify whether the information is correct or not. And then you can adjust it. You can adjust the word count, word limit, and then, of course, in the end, you can use your own intelligence to modify all of it and finalize the document. So this is how PaperPal works. So there are other similar agents like PaperPal, Quillbot, Grammarly, Writeful. So all of these are around the same price, around $10 a month. So that is around 1,000 rupees a month. But you need not take a yearly subscription. You might take it just before dissertation submission, or maybe before writing an academic paper. And Rightful is probably slightly cheaper. It is $29 a year, but again, yearly subscriptions are not advisable because they're changing every day. So now I'll show you how to generate quick revision flashcards from a topic. So this is the simplest way. You upload the document to ChatGPT, and then you use this prompt, summarize this article in one picture. All right. So it takes some time and it generates the picture. So I uploaded that article on migraine, and this is what came out. So I cross-verified the information, it's all correct. So it's just the information that is given in 5-6 pages that has been summarized into one picture. Now, if you want to modify this picture further, you can use Canva. So you can upload the same picture to Canva, and then you can ask for this. I'm creating a presentation for neurology residents, create a new original illustration inspired by the uploaded image. So yeah, so now it generates a refined version of that image, which might be suitable for your presentation or your needs. So I'll go to that image. So this is the image that I developed from Canva, uploading the image that was generated by ChatGPT. So this cycle can be done for n number of times until it serves your purpose. So now this is something I learned from Dr. Vishwanathan, who is faculty in the Department of Neurology at NIMHANS. I just created an artificial software using Claude. So I just gave the prompt, can you create an application for storing patient's name, age, sex, UHID, and diagnosis? And it just created a new de novo software for me, which I can download you pressing this export button, and I'll give you glimpses into how it works. So this is the software. The background looks really nice for me, for a gamer like me. So yeah, here you can enter the patient's name, age, sex, UHID, diagnosis, and then you can just click the save button and it shows one record. So yeah, that's done. So now you can use this as many number of times you want, and this will be your personal database. That can be for thesis data, that can be for hospital patient data for later review. So it's a very good tool for revision also. If you want to revise cases, you can just search the diagnosis and revise later. So this Claude is actually built by Anthropic. So here the prompt generation is a bit different. So most people will not be knowing this, that a hash followed by these prompts can actually save a lot of time in prompt generation. So I just gave a very simple prompt, hash quiz migraine. So it makes a fairly good quiz on migraine. So then these are other similar prompts. You can actually use these like proof and then text, it fixes the typos, rewrite sentence, then it gives 5 different versions of the same sentence. So I found that pretty cool. So ChatGPT versus Claude versus PaperPal. So one has to understand that ChatGPT and Claude, these are all generic agents. These are not built only for academic writing. Most residents make the mistake of using ChatGPT or Claude for academic writing, but that should not be done. PaperPal is rather a better academic specialist tool. So here, grammar, scholarly tone, all these things are taken into account, and the AI agent manages all that very well. But ChatGPT and Claude, they can be used for many other tasks. And the good thing about Claude is the hallucination with Claude is a bit less. ChatGPT often creates fictitious references, which is also there with Claude, but slightly lesser. So while collaboration and lab tools, uh, uploading things to a cloud is always beneficial instead of modifying a document and again resending and again retaking, resending. So bit.ai, lab archives, and Google Drive, of course, are uh, well-known. Google Drive is there. But the problem with Google is most people face a lack of memory space if they don't buy the paid version. So I personally have bought the paid version for a year, which came to around some 2,200 rupees. And also, I would like to point it out that Google AI, that is Gemini, is actually offering free 1 TB subscription for a year for students with a valid ID proof. So everyone can make good use of that. So what AI does well for residents is obviously saves time, and if you know how to use it well, it saves a hell lot of time, and you get a lot of explanations in very little time. Maybe you could have also got the same information reading a book, but the time is the main element that is saved here. And also sometimes your writing just becomes sharper. If you don't know how to write, AI cannot make you write. But if you know how to write, the just writing can become more sharper. So the main risks with AI are that of hallucinations and fake citations, which is rampant, and which is the reason most good journals have a very strong AI detection system before agreeing to publish a manuscript. And in certain cases, patient privacy breaches have also been noted. So identifiable patient data should never be posted into AI agents. And skill erosion is another issue that needs to be kept at the back of the mind, because over reliance can weaken clinical reasoning and writing, and over time habits form and neural circuits in the brain, they erode. So humans should always be in charge, and all that cliche, I don't want to go through that again. But definitely AI can summarize and brainstorm large documents in very short period of time. I've used AI extensively for my DM final exams, and even for the long answers preparation. I just before going to the exam hall, I could finish 4 or 5 long answer revisions using just AI. So AI is a study partner, not an author, and the tool has to be always matched with the task, and that has to be done through immaculate prompt generation. And always, always, always verification has to be done for all the data that is generated by the agent, and patient's integrity has to be protected. I would like to thank Dr. Saraswati Nashi, additional professor of neurology here at NIMHANS, for giving me this opportunity to talk, and Dr. Vishwanathan, who has been my AI guru. And thank you.
Yeah, that was thanks, Aradhya, for a wonderful, I think, extensive account of how AI is reshaping academics as well as the necessity. I think the biggest threshold which has faced us is the generation X, Gen X, and Gen Ys. We have been slow to adapt to it. That's again one of the reasons. The background reason is why it comes to the mind. Hey, I don't want to give up. It's my own ego that how can somebody take over my brain? But the fact remains, the efficiency improves. And like you've shown excellently, how useful it can be to get your tasks done. And somebody who's already using it, you can't hold it against him. So the dictum which stays currently as accepted is probably it's not going to replace us humans, but yes, somebody who doesn't know it maybe it may be replaceable. So people have to get tuned to it, because somebody else is using it. He's going to be faster. He's going to be smarter. Yeah, smart.
Exactly.
He's going to be AI smarter. May not be smarter, but like you said, you got to help yourself from the erosion of the brain. That's one of the biggest fears, and there have been papers which have led on to showing reduced activity in the frontal lobes, and maybe your uh, things working from the executive function. They might get eroded over the time. That only future will tell how the AI bots are going to create bots out of humans. But I think that was an excellent account. What would be more interesting to also know is, from at least was something which came up to my mind, is with all these now they're all paid. The free era is over, and that's how these companies are making money, of course. So, what would be a good combination to and a good platform to have the good mix of the AIs with a most economical way? I know we can't say it's we are LMIC, so I need it free. You'll have to pay for it.
All right. So most people, what they're using now is they're taking Airtel SIM cards to get Perplexity AI. Yeah.
I
So
agree.
that is,
But that's for
yeah,
free for a year only.
for free for a year only. Yeah, absolutely. But then after that, what I personally feel is you should not take a yearly subscription. You should just take it off and on when you require it the most. And of course, GPT till now it's giving good free backup. I mean, you can still search a lot of things using GPT, but you cannot use it for the advanced tasks. You cannot
Yes.
use it for a lot of image generation or PowerPoint presentation generation. But of course, for routine searching, some differential diagnosis, formulation, you can still use it. And Claude, I just made with no package, I mean, no subscription. I made this software with free Claude, but yes, for the day it's done. So from tomorrow, I can use it again. So I would say, and Gemini again for 1 year, it's free for students. So students can make use of that using their ID card. So Gemini and Perplexity, you get free for a year. And then GPT, again, free is fairly good. The only thing is Claude is not good enough. So Claude subscription can be taken before an academic event or a conference, something like that, or before dissertation submission. So that can be taken.
Right.
And of course, for advanced tasks, there are other agents like MATLAB, Python. I did not speak of that, but they're for the advanced people, fairly advanced into their fields.
Great.
There, my camera is not working, but so we are late converters. Means, as Dr. Dheeraj told that initial 2 3 years, I resisted that this is not a good thing, and gradually I am finding value to it, and I'm using it. So we are late converters, and with that comes some complexities because we and many of the people are not well versed in using multiple AI tools for different purpose. So we use one AI tool, say Claude, and we use that for all purpose. So this talk stood out to tell us that for different tasks, different AI tools are important, and maybe this will keep on changing. This will flux will be there. Claude may not be say good enough after 4 months time or after six months time, and
Exactly.
that's why we have to keep a tab on that. And in that case, would you suggest one single AI tool which does reasonably well for all the residency purpose? I understand that you talked about different about one single. Suppose we are not going to be too complex, one single AI tool. And second question, I'll ask you that you talked about erosion, the skill erosion, and that's going to happen because from the first slide we know that what are the differential diagnosis, right? And that is leading to less creativity of the mind. How to prevent that? You talked, yeah, it should be done, but how to do that?
Okay, so for the first question, sir, one single AI agent which can be kept, I feel it would be Gemini for me. I don't know. Again, it is a very personalized question. So for me, I would trust Gemini more than OpenAI, that is ChatGPT. So that is one. And secondly, for preventing skill erosion, what I do is I make my own handwritten notes for all the data that I get out of AI. So all the data that is gathered from AI, I jot that down on a large piece of paper, and then I try to connect the dots myself. And then AI just gives me a head start. That's it. So rest of the work is done by me only. So I personally have some obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So I have anancastic traits. So unless it is done totally by me, I don't trust anything else. So that is the reason I just use AI to gather the foundation, but the building is made by me. So I think that should be the way to go around and to prevent erosion of skills.
I agree. I agree because even for a presentation, that's what personally that's how I also look at it. You get a framework, but the PPT has to be or the content has to be validated by you. You just can't
Yes.
go on to a fully developed AI presentation. But yes, it helps you frame your thoughts or shape your thoughts. That it does wonderfully, because that's where the time is. I think the biggest threshold for making a PPT, for example, is how are you going to plan that? That planning time shortens
Yes, exactly.
because the data is there, you have the information with you. For the planning time, really shortens. I agree.
One challenge I have seen, Dr. Dheeraj, of course, for my generation, AI prepared presentation, if somebody presents, it looks very good, but we are not used to reading those boxes. Box, one big box, one small box, one subtitle somewhere. We are used to reading line by line by line. And then why that presentations come, our assimilation becomes less. Do you agree with that? Or is it just our mindset?
Well, I think the assimilation is all the mindset. For example, I'll take my own example. If I were looking at myself 5, 6, 7 years back, I still couldn't read papers on the computer screen. And now I would have to take a printout and then read it. Now it's totally gone. I'm used to very well used to reading a PDF file on the screen. It took a while. It really did take a while because we have been. It's all about training your circuitry. We were trained to look at print papers. I've hardly opened a textbook in years now. Textbooks are lying in our offices, huge, big epics written by neurologists and big, big names, and we don't open those textbooks. It does give a good feel, but none. We've been converted now, so that's exactly what's going to happen with this. That's happening with this, with the pattern change.
So, moving on, like I would like to say something in this regard. And can you see this screen?
Yes, yes, very
Hello.
well so.
Yeah. So when we are talking about the residency and learning, we all know that we follow these 4 steps where we start off with being unaware of the gap that we don't know something. Then subsequently we become consciously incompetent. We know that we are not skilled in some aspect or some skill. And then subsequently you develop the skills, but it needs a lot of focus. Over a period of time, you see more and more patients, learn more and more stuff, and you enter this stage of being unconsciously competent where skill becomes automatic. So, according to the framework by Daniel Kahneman, you have these 2 forms of thinking. One is the slow thinking and the fast thinking. So when you're moving from step to step, there is a lot of scope for a resident or for anybody to slow down and think carefully, step by step reasoning so that they reach the next phase organically. Now, then subsequently, you learn the pattern recognition, you learn the heuristics, and you reach that stage of fast thinking where you're able to make judgments at a snap and gut instinct. You need to watch what AI is doing to your steps. Is AI doing the fast thinking on my behalf? Then your skills will stay AI dependent. On the other hand, is it freeing my time by doing the mundane tasks and I am able to do more of slow thinking and I become an unconsciously skilled expert? So that is going to be the path to true mastery. And as Aradhya said, you need to cross check anything, every point of whatever the output AI is generating so that you become a true master. Now, I tried to put these prompts into AI to make an infographic. It made some errors. Then I thought maybe I would show this. So when at the bottom you see that it showed the system one overload 2 times. So I gave a prompt again asking why have you made this statement phrase 2 times continuously. So then it gave me this response. So this is an error in the infographics generated text. Then this is a classical AI hallucination. It had to be system 2 underuse and system 1 reliance. By mistake, it went this. So again, this is something that I wanted to show so that people don't go away with the idea that we can generate everything from AI and hand over these tasks to various LLMs and we can just put them in our presentations. Of course, maybe with time we would reach that stage, but we are not there yet. And so I of course use AI in various forms especially for formatting. So if you see, this is something when I was doing this, it said slide 8 has been saved, but slide 9, there is a template placeholder. There is no data. And I pointed it out that there is a data. Then it says, oh, yes, it had a table. I missed it. So the claims that the companies make, they may not be robustly backed by data. So the latest fable, it says they can have a 1 million token context window. But unfortunately, sometimes the output can be far from satisfactory. So of course, again, reiterating the point that Aradhya made, that you need to check everything. And how much is acceptable? That is some question that Dr. Saraswati also kept on asking during our preparation to this stage. And learning and understanding concepts, you can use it as per your requirements, no limits to it. Creating presentation projects and papers, it depends from institute to institute. And in most of the Western universities, there are guidelines, but in India, there are not existing guidelines in most of the places, and any abuse or use has no penalties or rewards as well. So I think we as a country and we as academia need to move towards something like that. Like for example, this is the Harvard application requirement. They say that if you are writing a personal essay and they suspected that you have used AI, then they will deny your admission to the program. Similarly, these are from the university guidelines from the various universities. So they say that if you have quoted and you don't, if you have taken the help of AI and you have not quoted, then probably it would be considered as cheating, and they have strict legal framework as well for that. So, of course, we do use generative AI in scientific research and writing, but most of the places wherever you use it needs to be cited properly in the method section. And every point has to be cross-checked, and there is a human accountability, and there is a disclaimer that you have checked everything. That is something. And from the perspective of a peer reviewer, most journals forbid peer reviewers from uploading the manuscripts into LLMs, mainly from the confidentiality perspective. So this is a meme that I saw sometime in the past while scrolling through social media, but subsequently I was not able to get it. So I asked Gemini to prepare this for me. So the author is sort of using AI to expand his 500 words to make a large essay. And the reader is again doing it on the reverse end, asking them to summarize it using the same AI tools. So it is sort of used both by the author as well as the reader. And we are here, we need to use it effectively and judiciously. So, moving on from this topic, now I would like to introduce Dr. Mauli, who is the founder and consultant at Samvedana Neurocare. And she has achieved this after her residency. She has set up her own clinic and is practicing as an independent neurologist, which is a remarkable achievement for a young budding neurologist. And she's committed to building patient-centered neurology, which is focused on evidence-based care. She has a lot of mentoring experience to her credit, where she has mentored hundreds of students during her MBBS and residency training. And she envisions to deliver compassionate evidence-based neurological care and to expand this quality service to the community and continue teaching and mentorship. Over to you, Molly.
Thank you, ma'am, for that kind introduction. Can I share my screen now? Is it visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So today's topic is curriculum lacune in neurology residency program. It is a privilege to speak on a subject that affects almost everyone in this room, not just as teachers or consultants, but as former residents also. When we ask how good is neurology training in India, most of us reply, it's very good. In many ways, it's absolutely true. But our residents, they probably see more patients in 1 month than many residents who see it in 6 months. They become naturally clinically sharper. They learn to recognize rare disorders and develop remarkable resilience. But clinical exposure alone is not enough. Neurons change drastically over a period of decade, last decade. And today's neurologist is expected to understand the genetics, thrombectomy, neurocritical care, electrophysiology, assisted diagnosis, research methodology, communication, everything. So the question is no longer are residents are hardworking or not. It's about how we can produce a neurologist which are instead of coming 20 years. So, the current landscape is, let me begin by acknowledging what India does exceptionally well. We have enormous patient volumes to query pathology and access to clinical. But the system, whether it's DM or DNB, residents become very confident when it comes to clinical diagnosis. But every system has some trade-offs. Heavy exposure often comes at the expense of structured competency-based learning, and sometimes we confuse experience with expertise. Seeing 500 EG is not
Mita, hello. Did she go offline?
Yes, yes. Yes, lockdown.
Okay. So uh, maybe you can try calling her. And in the meanwhile, Dr. Dheeraj or Dr. Rishi, would you want to say something?
Yeah, I think the discussion till now is really has been invigorating, I would say. And as for the AI, yeah, from the last lectures crux that we all got and what you said, I think the best part is if it saves your time and you use that time to build up your like the slow thought, deep thought. That's a more practical aspect of using AI. Being fully dependent on it, I think she's back. That's
Dr. Mauli, can you please unmute yourself? Go ahead.
yeah. So sorry. So now we'll talk about the electrophysiology training. There is some gap between the observation and expertise. Now, almost every resident observes hundreds of EEGs and NCVs. Many finished residents wondering, can I independently report the EEG? Can I independently perform a needle EMG? The answer is often no. And the issue here is not intelligence, it is usually the lack of opportunity to do heavy work. The residents usually have opportunity there are physiological procedures like evoked postures or SSPs, interrogative monitoring, advanced EEG interpretation like continuous EEG monitoring, status because it's all very limited and rather remain unavailable and should not simply be exposure, but should be the competence also. The other aspect of it is neurocritical care. It is neurology today extends far outpatient clinic. So a neurologist is expected to know everything about the stroke ICUs, status epilepticus, autoimmune encephalitis, raised intracranial pressure, and these usually demand the specialized neurocritical care. So ICU monitoring, uh, the ICP monitoring, transcranial Doppler, everything, continuous EEG monitoring is not actually very well covered in our curriculum. We usually learn ventilation, sepsis, how to deal with a critical patient. But when it comes to the neurocritical part, we often lack in some settings. Then comes the stroke. So the stroke has gone for a biggest revolution in neurology. We now have available mechanical thrombectomy, which has transformed the outcomes, and the angiography, this neurointervention. Usually, residents do not get to enter it, even like while training themselves during their neurology residency. Usually, they have to pursue it afterwards after the residency. So, uh, it is not to suggest that a neurologist should become an interventionist, but every neurologist or neurology trainee should understand at least the basic patient vascular and post-procedural care. Uh, Many a times it happens that the intervention is done by neurosurgeon and the post-procedural care, the medical care is also given by neurosurgeon only without being a neurologist getting involved. So I feel that a neurology trainee should have the overall exposure to such stroke management especially when it comes to the procedural skills. Then comes the research training part. So research or thesis deserves honest reflection. Every resident completes a thesis, but we usually don't enjoy completing a thesis. Unfortunately, for many residents, the thesis is rather an administrative obligation. And stats are outsourced, protocol writing is unfamiliar, grant writing is usually not there. The result remains predictable, and we produce thesis, but it's not really research oriented, and students are not given the practical training for as to how to go for the thesis topic selection and how to go about it further. Then comes the hidden curriculum. There is that we rarely discuss. The tip of the iceberg is the leadership skill. The residents learn how hierarchy functions, how to survive the long calls, the arduous paperwork, how to chase the investigations, how to manage impossible workloads. But these are actual lessons which need to be learned. But then there comes something like leadership, teamwork, conflict resolution, burnout prevention, mentorship, which are often expected to develop automatically, that they learn by themselves. It is not deliberately taught. So in our curriculum, we should include something that includes a soft skill management and how you can develop it, and it should be taught deliberately. Then comes the communication skills, especially when neurological disorders are so chronic and lifelong. We frequently tell the families that your child has muscular dystrophy, your parent has dementia, your loved one is brain dead, and recovery is maybe uncertain or impossible. In this conversation, among the most difficult in neurology. Yet, informal communication training is very limited and lacking. Good communication, it is, of course, our residents are empathetic while delivering it, but to improve the adherence, to reduce the litigation, to build the trust, and ultimately to improve the patient outcome, we should learn the communication and it should be a part of our curriculum. Then comes the genetics. Genetics, the neurology has increasingly genetic practice, and the future of neurology is a lot of based on genetics. Today, we tend to order whole exome sequencing, gene panels, mitochondrial testing, pharmacogenomics, but gene therapies. They will also gene-based therapy will become routine, especially in pediatric patients and some adult patients as well. So we as residents need to understand how to integrate course, whether this test which we are ordering are appropriate or not, cost effective or not, and if it comes positive, how to counsel the families about it. So it should all be a part of neurology curriculum. That's what I feel. Because technology advances and the preparedness is not there, then there will be an impact. Then comes and learning imbalance. probably summarizes everything. Our residents, they often work very hard, nearly 80 hours per week or more than that. Clinical volumes are extraordinary. Dedicated academic time is probably less than 5 hours per week. And this is not sustainable. If clinical skills are, of course, essential, but as a resident really has like theoretical knowledge also. The clinical, apart from the clinical service, the learning requires protected time. And without reflection, experience does not automatically become the expertise. There is some beyond factor in this whole neurology curriculum, that is preparing for post-residency reality. Now, this is something I went through when I passed my neurology last year in April 2025. After which, for 2 months, I had this constant questions in my mind that how do I establish a practice? Where do I work? Should I do a job? Should I do my own setup? What do I do? How do I choose if at all I establish my own clinic? How do I choose the equipment for electrophysiology equipment? How do the insurance systems work? How do I build a neurophysiology laboratory, or how do I manage my finances? These were all the questions lingering. And there is really nobody uh, to guide through this in a strategic manner. If you have some background, if you come from a medical background, then you might have some idea about it. But most of us, they hail from non-medical background, and we have no idea how to go about it. So career mentoring should be a part of residency, and it should not be something that is discovered after the graduation. Actually, the our Indian system has the residency system has a lot of scope to evolve. Research time, we could have some structured procedural logbooks, some competency assessments, interinstitutional exchange. Especially, we should bridge the gap between DM and DNB. And the idea was proposed a few months back by our one of the consultants, that DM students should have some rotation in DRNB Institute and the vice versa. That will exchange a nice it can give a nice environment to both the residents which they lack in their institutes. And other than that, we should schedule some specialty rotations, like for a neurology resident, neurology, pediatric neurology, neurosurgery, and psychiatric rotations. They should be scheduled to acquire the basic insights of specialties. So we are already doing it through IAN and many other platforms that we have centralized national webinar. We have online case-based learning and digital libraries. So we should keep up. And all in all, we have to reimagine the learning journey for the next generation. So we have to address this soft skill lacune, as well as we have to balance the clinical and technology proficiency, prioritizing the resident well-being, as we spoke in the first presentation itself by Dr. Basi, that resident well-being is of the utmost importance. And we should evolve the curriculum beyond the conservative neurology residency, where everything, many things have changed in past 10 years, including the curriculum and the non-academic things also. So all in all, these are the lacunae I want to address today, that electrophysiology training, neurocritical care, the thesis or research method, communication skills, the more integral use of the AI and teleneurology for the remotely available clinic. So there is a lot of scope to evolve our conservative neurology residency. And I feel if this is implemented, we would be able to produce more competent neurologists for the better future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Molly. That was sort of a reflection, mirror reflected on our training system. And we all know that there are lacuna. We all know that we should work on that. It also reflects that we are in rush to increase the number of seats throughout the country. and the training system has not coped with that, has not, and that creates more imbalance. So this there's no answer from our side, but of course we understand that. Having said that, this interaction, this interchange of people are that's important, and moreover, technology can be used because in many aspects, one as a resident, if there's no support to this degree, we should see that which verticals we need support: finances, starting a career, starting a practice, or starting a movement or practice, or you can say electrophysiology. Fortunately, as the technology has boomed, we have support for everything, online support. So one can think of taking help from that angle and move on. But I agree that there is some lacuna and we should work on that. I'll leave to Dr. Dhiraj and then we'll sum up later on.
Yes, agreeable, but I think whatever we learned today and heard our speakers, there's a lot of learning to that. Even I agree that training has lacunae, and some could be taken care of, some could be filled, but there's huge islands which still would be left unanswered. And probably the technology has an answer to that, like Dr. Rishikesh also mentioned. Maybe, this specific area, that how do we move ahead and develop our own careers. So the earlier, I think this was taken care by MBAs, and there is still a management degree for health professionals, which is not to do with how to manage patients, but how to help manage their practice. There are institutes which offer that, but that would mean entailing or maybe enlisting into another course. But till that time, I think what we have currently is what we saw today. The technology, the AI will probably give you easy answers to that as a startup. And if that can settle your answers to maybe setting up a practice, I'm not talking of the training part, but these parts which are not at all dealt with during your training. We simply ask everybody, I know that's a common thing. Where are you going? Where are you joining? That's all we ask. And we are only interested, okay, if you're going into academics, not into academics. But over the years, we see residents who build their own practice, build their own hospitals. It's a self-learned skill, maybe learned from their from families which run that, or they may develop it on their own. They do it the hard way, and that's been a pattern in our. I think that's an Indian culture. We do it the hard way. We learn as we course through the journey. Whereas the West has always been very systematic. Their practices are very systematic. They don't have shops. You open up a shop and you start practice. They have practices which are already established. You join a practice, you join an institute, or you join a system, a health system. So things are going to take a while. Till that time, I think the best recourse we have is use your friend Claude or Gemini to tell you how to set up those things. And about the communication skills, that's extremely important. We agree, and we do have certain courses which we run in institutes of communication. How do you communicate to within a system to patients? That really helps a lot because a lot of conflicts within a system can be addressed by the right communication. And I think that's extremely important. We address it day in and day out with when we are faced with such situations where there's a conflict between, say, the resident, the doctor, and the patient, and it all also stems from the fact that we all come from different backgrounds. Where we've trained, where we've come, and again, the West has excelled in it. There are institutes like Cleveland Clinic, which boast of huge programs in which they have communications as a major part of their curriculum. And if I'm not mistaken, some part of communication has now been added onto your curriculum in the undergraduate uh, period now. So that's happened probably now. So things are on the move, and I think with time we're going to see a lot of improvement.
Yeah, I must say that this presentation, all three, were very well curated, Ila and Saraswati. IAN and your team should to be proud about it, because we could see three angles of this. Dr. Vasik started where we started in this first year, feeling of being lost, struggle. So we all went into that era, and we could see that times have changed, but basic human emotions are same. And good thing that he took a problem and gave solution also. And Aradhya, of course, he brought numbers. He brought us to present era. And as he told in his discussion that those who master, they will excel for sure. But not those who blindly follow that. They won't do good. You have to master it, and you have to not blindly follow it. So that's the skill. And Molly was excellent in showing our deficiency in the system. And for that, we all have to work, and technology has to be taken care of.
Totally agree. And just to add on to that, I think we need to keep
Yeah.
a balance between our academic life, our personal life, and find the ways where we can keep this balance and keep our mental balance
Yeah.
intact. And same for the use of technology, a balance between using and mastering the technology rather than being, as you know, as since children we've been saying, we've been talking of this, are we slaves or are we masters? I think we need to run hand in hand with technology currently, and of course, learn the edge to use it judiciously.
And this is a marathon. This is a long, long journey. So if you're losing somewhere, it doesn't matter. Means you have a long journey ahead.
Like to say a few things based on my short experience as a faculty, and so every time a person like me, for example, I have been a faculty for the last 5 6 years at AIMS. So of over the years, I have realized that what resilience one person has may be different from for the other people, and identifying and accepting that what is a simple thing for me can be a little bit different for the other person's perspective is something that is important, as we as faculty and mentors need to keep learning. And I think that I used to think that every person has to be treated equally, like a similar number of cases are allotted, similar teaching patterns. I used to feel that that was the fair thing to do because it was equal for everybody. But after my training and especially following my fellowship, I have realized that equal opportunities may not always mean fairness, and you need to practice equity. And that is something that we need to do on a regular basis, every day introspect and ask ourselves, are we practicing equality or equity? So, two residents with the same profile rarely share the same struggle. And the friction that is sharpening one person can overwhelm the other, and each person wants the feedback also to be delivered differently. So, I have of late started being more introspective and checking the cognitive load rather than assuming it, and adjusting the friction week to week rather than following a simple same template for everyone. And in the past, it used to be said, "Oh, if someone couldn't make it, we simply covered it. We did two back full day calls." So maybe that brought in a little bit of resilience into us, but that is not something that is worth preserving or worth boasting about. Duty hours, well-being, and pressures of this generation are different, and we need to sort of accept it and move ahead to create a sustainable residency program for our juniors and the upcoming resident. And holding others to what we endured would confuse both what shaped us and what should be shaping them. So, how much friction can one handle and how much is too much? So, just like a jeweler who is polishing a gem, of course, a gem cannot be polished without friction. And but the jeweler doesn't use the same amount of friction for each gem in the each corner. So it varies from person to person and longitudinally over time. And the work around is seeking active feedback about our own performance as mentors and faculty, and to have a 360-degree communication with our residents as well as whoever peers we are working with. So that is what I would have to say.
Thank you. And this was a great account. And I think this is a great forum to bring about these topics, and it's a refreshing. I would call it a very refreshing session, away from the didactic and academic part of neurology. This was quite refreshing and engaging. We were actively thinking, and because this was what we were, and this it's needed, and I think this forum and this entire platform for Young Neurology Forum would be really paving a path to help residents in the future. It's a good initiative, and continue doing these great programs.
Yeah, thank you. So these things you won't find in book. So that way it's more important.
Saraswati ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dheeraj sir and Rishikesh sir, for spending your Sunday on a very crucial issue for our new residents who join in July this month. And to Elaborasi for bringing up this topic in this forum. To add a few points, I think technology has evolved so much. We learn more from technology and AI. So there are two aspects to it. One is AI for residency and one is AI in research. So AI in research is mind-blowing. So I think with this, I thank you all again for joining us today. Have a nice Sunday. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, technical team as well. Bye.